While that gets going, you can start working on the tenderloin breading. So I've got about a cup of pretzels here, and they are gonna make the most wonderful breading. I'm just gonna pop these in a food processor here and pulse them. To a fine meal. Take that out and drop it in over here. And since this is a breading, you're going to want to make sure it tastes right. So take a little taste. And assess the saltiness. If it doesn't taste really salty to you, you're going to need to add some salt, because there's only a thin little coating of the breading on the pork tenderloin. So I'm just going to free pour a little salt in here, probably about a 1/4 teaspoon or so. And just toss it together here real quick. One more little taste here. Perfect. Now let's move on to the other part. To make the breading stick, you're going to need some wet ingredients. So I have 1/8 cup here of Dijon mustard, and about a 1/4 cup of sour cream. To that, I'm going to add the white of 1 egg. Crack my eggshell carefully here. And allow the white to pour off. Just need the white for the sticking power that it provides. The yolk you're going to need for the crust of the apple crispy. So whisk these together until you have one smooth consistency. That's perfect right there. Now take your tenderloin, roll it in this goopy, moist stuff, this sour cream and mustard and egg white. Get it all nice and coated and loved up. And then roll it in the crumbs. Coat it entirely. A nice thick crust on there. Once you're satisfied with your coating, go ahead and stick it in a baking pan. I recommend finding a pan that sort of squishes it at the end so that it plumps up. That way you get nice sized tenderloin slices. And add a little more crumbing on top here. I see some meat sticking through, so I'm going to cover that up. Then this is ready to go in the oven, after I give my hands a little wash. So I have my oven set at 375 degrees. The roast is about 1 pound. So it's going to take anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes. Now I know that's quite the range, but it's going to depend on your oven and the type of tenderloin that you're using and all that jazz. Now let's talk about the red potatoes and white wine. So you're going to need to take about a tablespoon or so of butter and melt it in a saute pan first. You want to get it all good and happy. At this point, you just want the pan to be on kind of a medium temperature, just enough to melt the butter and make it bubble, but not enough to brown the butter necessarily. Now add your red potatoes. In this instance, I went ahead and sliced them in half, and I'm going to put them sliced side down in the butter first. Let them soak it all up. In a couple minutes, we'll toss some more love into it. Bring in a small saucepan here, because another part of the roast is going to be a delicious red wine mushroom gravy sauce to go over the top of it. So to make that, you're going to need to start about a 1/2 tablespoon of butter melting. And it's okay if the pan's a little hot like that, because we're going to make it into a brown roux with about a 1/2 tablespoon of flour. So stir these two lovely ingredients together. Dissolve the flour in the butter and take it to a nice dark brown color. Use medium-low heat, by the way. Well, that is a nice dark brown, rich color. Just the sort of flavor foundation you're gonna want for this red wine mushroom sauce. So let's bring in a half cup of red wine. There we go. And add the mushrooms. I have about approximately a cup's worth of chopped up mushrooms. Get those all in there, get them nice and happy. And then we're gonna need to cover it with a lid. And just bring that up to a boil and drop it down to a simmer, and we'll season it up at the end. Let's take a look at these potatoes here. Most of the wine has soaked up and cooked out. Now we are gonna need to add a little bit more wine back into here because we're gonna use it to cook off the asparagus. I'm just gonna drop a little bit in there. Really just looking for the steam. Add some asparagus stalks, just the tender tips. And just sort of put them on top here. Hit it with a little salt and pepper. Make sure it's all good and loved up. Put the lid back on. And simmer it until the asparagus has turned a bright green color. And let's take a look at the mushroom sauce here. Brought up to a nice boil. And now I'm gonna let it do its simmering with the lid off so that the wine can evaporate out and the sauce can thicken nicely. So let's go check on the roast. I bet it's done. It smells very nice in here. Now the only way to truly know if your roast is done in this instance is if it reaches an internal temperature of 160 degrees. In the meantime, it can just set off to the side and cool off, and I'm gonna go ahead and reset my Crispies in here on a lower shelf. Grab the cutting board and knife, which I'm gonna need in just a moment to chop or slice the pork tenderloin in nice little medallions. Give it to me. There we go. Let's take a look at the sauce over here. It's almost all cooked down. Now it's time to season it up. Let's take a little taste of it right off the bat so that you know where you're starting from. Really good, but it definitely needs some salt and pepper to bring it out of its shell. So you're probably gonna need about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a little black pepper to taste. With the mushrooms and the complexity of the red wine working together, you're really not gonna need much more than that. That's delicious right there. And let's take a look in here. Beautiful. We've achieved a nice bright color on the asparagus. It's definitely cooked, but not soggy. It'll be ready to go when we're ready to plate. Now let's see if this is cool enough to work with. Definitely. If it's cool enough to handle, it's definitely cool enough to slice. It's always good to let the juices pull back into the roast by allowing it a few minutes to cool. So I'm just going to slide my knife in here, and I'm actually going to cut this nice little tenderloin on a bias cut, going for slices between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick. I'm doing the bias cut because it makes a little bit larger surface space to the slice, making it look like there is more meat. You want to use a nice sharp knife for this job so that it cuts right through the coating without ripping it off the meat. And you might as well just slice the whole thing up while you're at it. Now let's go check on the crispy before we get all excited about plating. Oh, very nice. You want to see a nice little bubbling around the outside. That tells you that the apples are cooked and the filling is done. So we're going to turn off the oven. And now time for the magical trick that makes the topping very crunchy and crispy. Leave the door open a crack and allow the moisture to evaporate out as it cools. Now with that done, we can focus in on dinner. I'm going to start by grabbing out the asparagus in here. Putting those on the plate. You're going to love the way the asparagus works against the richness of the roast and the sauce and the potatoes and all that. Be a nice bright complement to the flavor. And back to the potatoes. Drop another little half tablespoon of butter in there and just give them a nice little loving coat. It's going to add a little bit of shine, a little extra flavor, and just generally make them taste awesome. And once you've got them all coated, go ahead and plop them on the plate too. Nice yummy big bites of potato. Who doesn't love meat and potatoes? Reach in here and grab a few of these nice yummy slices. Kind of fan them out, scallop style like that. Most tenderloin roasts are a little under a pound each, which makes it just about the perfect portion. Hit it with a little bit of this beautiful mushroom sauce right across the top. A little sprinkle of some green herbs to brighten it up. There you go. So some scratch ingredients, a whole lot of love and a little flair. You just whipped up a dinner to share with your sweetie that could have easily cost you 50 bucks if you went out. So pair this up with a nice soft red wine. I'd recommend a Pinot Noir or perhaps some Merlot. Now call in your sweetie.
Honey, hey.
Yeah.
Look.
Wow, does that look good?
Hi, handsome.
So do you. You look good too. Alright. Date night dinner at home.
Sorry.
Wow.
Pork tenderloin going on with a nice rich mushroom sauce on top.
Let's try that mushroom sauce. Oh my goodness. This is such a hot kitchen.
So thanks for joining me in my hot kitchen tonight. Have fun turning up the heat in your kitchen, and I'll see you next week. Night night. Pet the kitties.